What are you afraid of? Is that a rhetorical question? No, really. What scares you? Is it something you see in the news? Terrorism, global warming, Zika virus, Ebola virus, any virus, really. Or something you face at home. Big decisions, public speaking, cancer, confrontation, failure, farm animals. Don't ask. We all have fears, and any spirituality, any faith worth following, better have a good way of dealing with them. Fear is a powerful force in our lives. I'm not afraid of anything, except for spiders. Spiders are the worst. We don't like to admit it, but it's an ever-present factor in our decision-making. What if I choose the wrong college? Our parenting. Son, I want you to text me when you get there. Text me when you are there. Text me when you leave there. You know what? How about you just don't go there? Why don't you play in your room with the door open so I can see you all the time? And even our eating. Is this gluten-free? Because I'm totally gluten-free. From a scientific perspective, fear as a feeling, a sensation, is relatively easy to understand. What we know is that when a frightening stimuli is encountered, the thalamus, a small structure in the middle of our brains, sends a message to the amygdala, which plays a role in memory, decision-making, and emotion, that something scary is taking place. The amygdala then tells your body to increase your heartbeat, intensify your breathing, and put you on hyper alert. Now, many times this sensation of fear is truly helpful. It helps us to understand danger and empowers us to take action, which is good. But sometimes the fear that we have looms, the anxiety we have lingers, and the source of that fear is not easily discernible, or the fix for that fear is not easily accomplished. And while science is really good at telling us what happens in our bodies in moments of fear, it's not so good at telling us how to live with and manage life's fears. Enter spirituality. Hey there. Every major religion recognizes the power that fear plays in human life and aims to address it, but they do so in very different ways. Some religions argue that the best way to tackle life's large and looming fears is to deny them. They argue that fear itself is not real. It exists only in the mind. Or as the Buddha once said, rub my belly. Is that offensive? Oh, it is? I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't know. I grew up in a very sheltered home. With our thoughts, we make the world. Therefore, if one could alter their thinking to exclude fear, it would cease to exist. Other religions affirm the reality of fear and encourage us to face the things that frighten us, arguing that the best way to deal with our fears is to defeat them. This is often the central idea championed in New Age spirituality and in the self-help genre. Many argue that it's an outgrowth of the Enlightenment, an intellectual movement in the 17th and 18th centuries that emphasized human reason. We are so smart. The power of the human individual. We can do anything we set our minds to, except levitate. Nothing, and which still shapes much of our thinking today. Consider these words from Voltaire. Oh, I know what that is. It's a super robot that defends the universe. Oh, sorry. I was thinking of Voltron. So cool. A French Enlightenment writer and philosopher. He says, throughout life, man must advance like a warrior and die with his sword in his hand. Only weak and feeble-minded persons are knocked down by events. Critics of these two views argue that in an effort to alleviate fear, they actually compound it by placing a tremendous amount of pressure upon the individual to either think differently in the face of fear or to act boldly in the face of fear, with the implication being that if the fear cannot be alleviated, you, the frightened one, are a failure. The classic Christian approach to fear stands in contrast to these two. Me again. Instead of encouraging people to deny their fears or defeat their fears, the Christian faith encourages those overwhelmed with anxiety to confess their fears, to affirm they are real, to admit their sense of weakness, and to place their confidence that these fears will be conquered not in themselves, but in the finished and future work of Christ. The Christian approach to dealing with fear is not to look inward, but to look backward and forward. Backward in history to the empty tomb of Christ, where his power over mankind's greatest fear, sharks, death, was displayed. And forward in history toward his return, where his power over mankind's lingering fears, war, disease, stepping on a Lego while barefoot, will be put on display, and he will usher in a new world where fears are stilled. This is why in Christian communities, you'll find the reality of fear often combated with the reading of Scripture, the recitation of God's promises, and humble, heartfelt prayers. Not apologizing for fear or hiding fear. You could really kill some spiders with this thing, but pouring forth their fears. For Christians, it's a way of anchoring their hope not in their own abilities. That's too much pressure, but handing their problems to the one who has and who will conquer them. Drawing strength from the idea that while fear is real and problems exist, the burden is not on our shoulders, but in his hands.